Experience hospitality the Northwest way at the Everglades Hotel. Located on the banks of the River Foyle, the Everglades Hotel is just minutes from the centre of Derry, Londonderry, with free on-site guest car parking. Whether you're here for a family meal, a big celebration, or simply a peaceful retreat, we'll make your experience as memorable as the sights in the city. Visit Everglades Hotel Derry for accommodation bookings, the latest menus, live shows and events, and much, much more. See you there.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Gaelic Lives podcast. We're looking back at all the championship action from the weekend, and there was plenty to keep us going. I think there's 6 counties now that have got their championship campaigns all underway. Monaghan is one of them. They were in the second weekend of their championship campaign, and I'm delighted to welcome on Fergal Monaghan to the podcast, and he's going to help us look back at everything Monaghan. So another big weekend just passed. Fergal, everything's fairly busy.
Yeah, we look at two. We're going for 3 weeks in a row. This was the second week. The championship got started last week, Sean. Kind of starting to take a bit more shape. Now, two teams didn't play last week. Scottstown had their first outing this week, and so did Maracloon. So there's always a team with a bye. Those were the two teams with the bye this time, and then obviously that'll happen every week. There's a team now. After next week, there will be a break for a week, and then we're back at it. So every team will play 5 in the Monaghan group, but definitely, it settles in the first week. We see where teams are. County guys coming back, some counties missing players because of their away in America or for whatnot, and then this week it kind of starts really taking shape, which has been the case.
Is it too early to sort of call who the big hitters are? Obviously, we know a few. Scottstown, obviously the county champions. You have Clontibbert there in a skiing all in finals in recent years. But is it too early to call who's going to be the winner?
Well, it's been pretty much a consensus around Monaghan and maybe in Ulster that it was going to be Scottstown's championship. Now, they didn't play last week, so they're coming in this week, and they played Clontibbert. And of all the teams that they play, Clontibbert are the team with that winning pedigree, with experience, and they won the minor league during the week as well, and they're peppering in young players as well. They're a brilliant club like that. And I think it was a perfect result. Clontibbert and Scottstown were at home, 122 apiece. Game of the championship so far. And you may be looking at possibly the two county finalists on that. Now, it is early, and there's always a team will have something to say. Inniskeen, Latin are going well. Carduff bit back this week after a disappointing result last week. So, there's always, you can't take anything for granted, but certainly the way Clontibbert have mixed, the new rules suit Clontibbert, there's no doubt about it. Conor McManus looks really fresh. Killian Lavelle is back to full fitness. They've got shooters. The fact that Conor can now play up forward and not try to, Conor McManus used to have to come back into defence and you could find him anywhere. He can save himself a little bit. And I have to mention my good friend and my co-commentator on Northern Sound, Desi Moan. Desi, with his nephew, Charlie Moan, they set each other up. They played the ball around in the last, deep into injury time, 2 points down. And Charlie got it back out to Desi. They played it over and back 3 times. And Desi was, the Scotsman boys dared Desi to shoot, and he did. And he was punching the air before he even looked at the ball going over there. So it was a bit of a reeling in the ears for Desi. He was happy with that one. So it was a family affair. But Clontibbert have that winning kind of, they back themselves, and they're never overawed by Scottstown. A lot of times Monaghan clubs play that blue jersey, and the jersey kind of puts them back a little bit, but that doesn't happen. Clontibbert, obviously, Clontibbert lost the county final to Scottstown last year by 5 points in the end. So, they're looking good at the minute. Scottstown will be disappointed. There's no doubt about that. They were 1-5 to no score up, Sean, and 1-8 to 2 points in the 12th minute. And Clontibbert had Kieran Green and black carded, so they managed not to win that at home. They'll be disappointed. But I think if Clontibbert had to beat Scottstown, I can't see Scottstown losing any more than one game in the championship. And I think it would have been a bad result for Clontibbert if they beat Scottstown, because Scottstown will not. If you're going to beat Scottstown, you better beat them in the knockout. That'll be my opinion on it.
Now, what sort of setup had Scottstown Fergal in terms of their county men? Were the full strength? Or was there?
Jack McCarron was there. He hit 6 points, mostly from frees. Darren Hughes was there playing full forward and then moving out like he does. He goes in and out a little bit. Look, it wasn't a good day for Scottstown. Gavin McPhillips went off, big Gavin midfielder on the Monaghan panel. He went off with an injury. And Micheál McCarville turned his ankle as well, but he couldn't go off because we were out of substitutes at that time. So that'll be a bit of a worry for Scottstown. On the other side of it as well, another worrying thing for Scottstown, there was no Conor McCarthy and there was no Ryan O'Toole. Now, whether that's precaution, I know Conor might have a slight groin injury. I'm not sure if he needs further treatment, whether he'll wait till after the championship. I think Ryan O'Toole will be back. So, Scottstown didn't have their full complement. There's no point saying they did, and injuries and whatnot, but Gavin McPhillips won off as a bit of a worry, and Micheál McCarville. That's their midfield partnership. And now Francie Hughes was very good for Clontibbert. He did a good job on Jason McGee last week. Jason McGee, the Donegal man, playing for Carduff. Clontibbert had a great victory against Carduff in that opening round. So, Clontibbert looking strong. It'll be a bit of a soul-searching week for Scottstown. David McCaig, no better man to get the lads set up. They'll be a dangerous animal next week, and I think they're playing True. So True have a bit of soul searching to do as well after a heavy defeat to Carduff. So, but Scottstown will be. I wouldn't fancy playing Scottstown next week after that result. They wouldn't have been happy with not finishing the job at home.
Fergal, you'd mentioned Carduff sort of bouncing back from last week, fairly emphatically, I think. I know, was there a big breeze maybe in Carduff that the chased ahead in the first half? So this game was nearly over at half time themselves and True.
Yeah, it was 118 to 2 points in favour of Carduff at half-time, and there was a massive breeze. And Carduff, I think, hit 7 2-pointers in that first half. And that's the one thing I'm noticing in this Monaghan Championship, Sean. Teams that can hit 2-pointers is big. We've seen that in county setup where the quality is that much higher. In the first round of Monaghan Championship matches, there wasn't that many 2-pointers. But now they're starting to, and it was a windy weekend. I know it was very sunny and all that, but there was a lot of wind around. But the teams that have the quality forwards with that 3-man up, the forwards staying up, the teams that have those quality forwards, we're seeing larger defeats. We're seeing bigger defeats with the 2-pointers, and teams that maybe were well set up, that went up from intermediate and kind of set up their stall, got very organised and kind of eked out results and were hard to beat. It's harder to do that now with these new rules. And listen, Carduff were so disappointed with the performance against Clontibbert last week. And they were a stung animal. And I was talking to the Carduff boys. They were at the Inniskeen Anamullen game. They were watching it. And I said, say training was good crack during the week. And they said, no, definitely not. They really put their shoulder to the wheel. 118 to 2 points up. Fergal Hannerty, really good forwards on the Monaghan panel. I think he hit maybe 5 or 6 too. I can't remember now, but he was prolific. Jordan McGarrell, Sean McEnany, Sean Burns, they were all chipping in with the 2-pointers. And at the beginning of the second half, when True had the wind, it was Carduff who got the goal, and it just completely sunk True. Now True are minus Gary Mohan, who's in America, and Louis Kelly, who's made a real impact with Monaghan this year. That hamstring injury, he was kept on the line for the Cromartin game that True won last week. He came off very early in the match with that hamstring injury, and it's looking like he'll be missing next week as well. So another bad day for True, but they'll be probably very disappointed that the challenge wasn't there. They capitulated fairly quick with what the wind and Carduff being on it, but True were never in this game. And Carduff are up and running now, and they're a dangerous outfit. Carduff, they're a very together outfit. They're very organised. We know their coaching staff. We know what they're about. These lads are committed, and losing that first game can be a disaster for a team, but they bounce back and have momentum in their sails now going forward.
On Group 2 then, Fergal, Lawton and Maghercloone. I know this was a repeat of the league semi-final, and Maghercloone won it. So Lawton got a bit of revenge this time. They won by 6 points.
Yeah, listen, Maghercloone and Lawton have played a few times now, Sean, and Damien Feeney is the manager for Maghercloone, and Eamon Hughes, the coach, and a few other guys there. But there's a real togetherness in Maghercloone. It's back. They have the junior and senior management are the same, and it's a sense like there was 30 players used in Maghercloone over the league campaign, and there's a real sense that they're building something there. And they beat Lawton in that semi-final by a point in a really hard-hitting game. and the junior, they beat Latin in the junior championship as well. So, the cards were stacking up for Latin. We're kind of getting sick of Latin, a very tough, proud club, and David Lennon's over them and he's enjoying it. There's a freshness about them. They had a massive win against Annamullen last week, and I think that gave them wind in the sails. I talk about this momentum carry on. It's a big buzzword in GA, momentum, but it is, you win your first game, you're coming into the second, there's a lift, and then of course within the games, those momentum with 2-pointers and wind and whatnot. Well, Latin were really, really good. They played with the wind in the first half. Very, very, Kieran Duffy was excellent, but they had the man who wasn't playing against Maracloon in the league semi-final, Aaron Mulligan. Aaron Mulligan scored 2-4 last week against Annamullen, and he scored, I think, 9 points yesterday out of that 20 points. He's been brilliant, and he hit a couple of 2-pointers as well, and those 2-pointers were massive, particularly when they had the wind. So I felt then when Maracloon had that strong breeze in the second half, Latin actually played better and outscored Maracloon. It was 11-9 at half time. It finished up 20 points to 14, so they outscored Maracloon 9-4 or 9-5 in the second half against the wind. And that's because Latin are playing this running game, Sean, where they're all hungry. And they've got leaders and people who are taking the ball on. The cornerbacks were coming up, getting frees, scoring points. There's a real freshness about Latin. And the thing about Latin as well, they are a tough outfit. And now they've got that extra bit of quality up front as well with Aaron Mulligan. Now, Owen Duffy, Kieran's brother, still playing. He wasn't playing yesterday, still injured. With him to add in as well with that experience, they're a tough outfit, and that's another team who are showing to be really in really good form. So Latin, Clontibbert, Scottstown are the team showing the form at the minute, and then we'll see if Carduff can build on that win that they had on Saturday.
They got a 2-point win. I think they were against Armagh 210 to 0-14, and I think Andrew Woods, he got maybe 1-4 last week, did he? He got a goal this week again.
Yeah, last week Andrew Woods, Sean Jones and Connor Jones, they're all related, got 1-4 each, 312 out of 317. I tell you, Andrew Woods' form is spectacular at the minute. He's bringing that. The county game has him fit. He's fresh. He scored 1-6 yesterday against Annamullen. He was the difference, really, I have to say. Connor Jones as well going well. From a Monaghan point of view, you're looking at new players. Connor Jones, a young fella who could really make an impact. He's a brother of Sean. But the worrying thing for Inniskeen and John McEntee is that Inniskeen were 2-10 to 6 points up in the 19th minute in the second half. Andrew Woods scored a 2-pointer. They didn't score again for the rest of the game. And Annamullen came back, spearheaded by Micheál Bannigan. And Inniskeen were hanging on at the end. It ended up a 2-point win, 210 to 14 points. And Annamullen did miss a little bit as well. They wouldn't be happy with their shooting. So from John McEntee's point of view, he'll be slightly worried that there was injury time as well. They went about 15, 16 minutes without scoring there and were hanging on. Good win against Ballabay, a Ballabay team that weren't playing this weekend, who are absolutely ravaged with injuries. Desi Ward out for the season, Drew Wiley out for the Cruciate, so Shane McGuinness out. So they're under pressure. They're really struggling. Maracloon play them next week. Inniskeen play Maracloon next week. So Inniskeen are in good form, 2 wins from 2, but certainly a lot of questions to be answered this week for John, because he won't be happy with how they finished the game. But that Maracloon Inniskeen game next week will be a big one, because Maracloon have to win. Inniskeen, not so much. They're pretty much guaranteed quarter-final football now, no matter what. Now it's just a matter of who tops the group.
Fergal, before I let you go, I'll ask you the unfair question. You said at the start, probably Scottstown's championship to lose, but are they going to lose it, or are they going to retain their title, or how do you see it all panning out?
Well, look, that's the cat's been thrown amongst the pigeons there with that Clontibbert. If Clontibbert can keep all their men, Dara Hughes wasn't playing. He went off injured against Carduff. Nothing a nasty enough injury. If Clontibbert can keep fresh and keep, the experienced players going where they are and avoid injury, I feel they are the team best equipped to dethrone Scottstown. But I find it very hard to go against Scottstown, but the injuries and how that game played out, this is a real politician's answer. I will eventually get around to saying I'm going to say a Scottstown Clontibbert final, and geez, I'm kind of edging towards Clontibbert, but I said Scottstown all along, and I'll play it safe. But the more this championship goes on, Sean, I'm edging towards Clontibbert. I think it'd be a great outside bet for any man who likes a wager.
Yeah, there's a lot of football still to be played, so we'll not hold you to that just yet, Fergal. There's a good few weeks to go.
Yeah.
Fergal, thanks very much for coming on. Great to hear from you. And giving us a roundup of the Monaghan Championship and how everything's shaping up in the Farney County. We're going to take a quick break now. We're going to hear from our sponsors, Hastings Hotels, and then I'll be joined by Molly McMullen, and we'll round up the rest of the
Thanks, Sean.
action from across Ulster. Fergal, thanks very much. Great to hear from you.
Cheers, buddy. That was all right. So, yeah.
Experience hospitality the Northwest way at the Everglades Hotel. Located on the banks of the River Foyle, the Everglades Hotel is just minutes from the centre of Derry, Londonderry, with free on-site guest car parking. Whether you're here for a family meal, a big celebration, or simply a peaceful retreat, will make your experience as memorable as the sights in the city. Visit Everglades Hotel Derry for accommodation bookings, the latest menus, live shows and events, and much, much more. See you there.
So, Mal, we're going to round up the rest of the action, and we'll start with Derry. I know Derry got underway this weekend, and obviously this is your personal favourite subject, Derry club football. So, a big upset, first round county champions defeated in first day out.
Yeah, been given 215, Newbridge 11 points, and the scoreline definitely doesn't flatter Dungiven at all. It's an upset, Sean, and probably the margin is an upset, but anybody who's at home beg would just know that that Dungiven full value for it. They got a couple of slices of luck, you would have to say. Newbridge goalkeeper Nathan Rocks miskicked a kick out just before half time to Niall McGonigal, who scored 1-9, and he just buried the ball, and that was their second goal. And in the second half, Sean Young had a goal chance at whizzed across the goal mouth when there were 6 points in it with 15 minutes to go. One of those ones where if it had hit an ankle or a divot or anything, it would have ended up in the net. So those sort of things went for Dungiven, but to be fair, they deserved everything that they got. They brought a hunger to it. They were organised. They had like what seemed to be for majority of the game 2 banks of 4 on the Newbridge kickout, which left it a battle. And then they were prepared to battle themselves, and they won. A lot of the key matchups around that middle third. It was sort of, I think it might have been level 3 times at 5-5. Eamon Young put Newbridge a point up. Then came Dungiven's first goal, sort of a goal mouth scramble, and Joe Dillon buried it to the back of the net, and you could hear the roar. No way, Sean, you're the game, and when a score goes in and you hear that roar, there was a real lift among them. And from Dungiven's point of view, they pushed Glen very close in a group game last year, and they'll probably be scratching their heads all winter to want to work out how they didn't beat Maherfelt in a knockout game. So they have been coming, albeit they've been away from the top table for a while in terms of like really challenging for the championship. But this was a tremendous result, and like Conor Doherty kicked a 2-pointer, his brother Oisín kicked a 2-point free, but it never really looked like they were going to come back. And the feature in Derry over the weekend was high scoring games and loads of action. And as you've probably saw it yourself in Armagh, where big leads disappear very quickly. But even when there was 5 points in this game, you just got a feeling that Dungiven controlled it. To be, Newbridge couldn't get to the level they're at, last year, but a lot of the credit goes to Dungiven. And because they were able to keep a hold of the game, you never really felt they were going to lose it. And you'll hear from Manager James Mickle later on in the podcast, but I was talking to him after the game, but a significant result. And then I suppose the bonus they've got now is if recent All-Ireland champions Glen in the next round. So you're going from one county champion to the next. But I think it's brilliant for the Derry Club Championship. Obviously, Newbridge won it last year, opened up a few doors, and this one will open up a few more. And probably just my final point in this game, because we have a lot of counties to get through here, Sean, and we've Derry to round up as well. But the fact that the game was won well before it was over meant that there was a sort of a diluted celebration where they actually had time to come down a wee bit. Whereas if they had won it with a last minute goal, it might have took them the rest of the week to actually mentally recover. So at least they're able to get tuned in, albeit, the dual lads of hurling to contend with over the next few days, preparing for the weekend. But big result in Derry.
Yeah, that was obviously the standout one, Mal. Suppose give us a quick roundup of the Derry Championship.
Yeah, Steelstown 227, Faughonville 513. This was the Cahir McMonagle show. He scored 116. I had to rush off and go to the saw doctors, but it seems like I missed all the entertainment when I left. I've heard mixed reports, 5 2-pointers or 6 2-pointers, I'm not sure which, using both feet. Really, I'm just looking forward to seeing if like Kieran Meany can introduce somebody like this into the setup at the county level. He's been around the panel. So 116 and Faughonville, they made a real fist of it. They came back into it, and Shea Martin got a couple of goals for them that helped them back into the game. But they needed a late equaliser to take it to extra time. And by all accounts, McMonagle took over again. The Vale got 2 penalties to give them a chance, but it was really the McMonagle show, and it's a significant result for Steelstown from the point of view that they're into the front door now, and from Faughonville's point of view, they're recently promoted. They probably should have won the intermediate championship next year, so they'll have loads to build on. But again, the only name on everybody's lips in Derry this weekend is Cahir McMonagle, and that was exceptional. Another game was at Blahy 122, Ballinderry 118. A brilliant finish for a Blahy goal from Peter Cassidy. An excellent move. I think it might have been Luke Damon caught the kick. I'm not quite sure. And they used Route 1 as in the fact of looking up, kick passing, and Peter Cassidy's goal right to the bottom corner. Ben McInnes is a good shot stopper and into the net, and that put them into the driving seat. Ballinderry lost a man to a black card, and during that stage, Blahy had sort of started to make a lot of hay. Owen Brown, Damon Gallagher were kicking points. They kept the scoreboard ticking over. Ryan Bell, I think he got 9 points in all for the Shamrocks, and so he was their main outlet, whereas Blahy had 10 different scores. And from Ballinderry's point of view, Niall O'Donnell was exceptional. Scored 5 points and created goal chances, and so. But it was an excellent game. Another one I was at, Loop 221, Swatter 218. Loop were 12 points up at a stage. I did say that right, 12 points up. Ciaran Devlin with a goal, Anthony O'Neill with a goal, Kieran Devlin with 6 first half points. Then came a real bizarre sequence of events. Sean Kearney, who scored 2-9 for Swatter, he was brilliant, absolutely brilliant, well worth going to watch. All these good players now with his wee bit more freedom. He found a way through Loop's defence. He was sort of sidestepping around everybody. It hit the post when across. Big talking point, did it cross the line or not? Thomas Mallon, I was talking to him afterwards, he maintains it didn't, but the umpire flag went up quite quickly for the goal. And then on the kick out, Loop were protesting the goal, and the referee then turned the kick out into a 14-yard free, and they couldn't get men back in the lane quick enough, and Kearney blasted it to the net. So 2 goals in a minute, and Swatter were back in the game. And then they took over. Sean Kearney's twin brothers, Patrick and Francis, got a hold of the game, and they actually looked at a stage they were going to win. And then Kieran Devlin kicked a very inspirational 2-pointer to level it, and then Lip pulled away. Swatter had a few chances, to be fair, but their left sort of ruined the fact that they were chasing the game, and maybe the energy and composure ran out slightly. But an excellent game, I would have to say. And just before I go on to the rest of the games that I wasn't at, just to give it a roundup, I think probably the most frustrating thing I saw over the weekend is the advantage rule. I think it might need a rethink. And I know we're tight for time here. I'm not going to go into it too much, but a lot of balls moved, where a play is going on, a defender's trying to jockey somebody on the 1v1, and then it's called back for the free. I think the advantage rule should be slightly shorter. There needs to be something defined on, and that was a feature of a lot of the games that I saw. Maherfelt winners over Ballinascreen. It was their goalkeeper Shane McGuckin scored 8 points. Owen Lynch injured. Carl Campbell, recent Derry Minor All-Ireland winning keeper, he's injured as well. Shane McGuckin got 8 points. His 2-pointer put them ahead at half-time. And then Shane Heavern's goal put Maherfeld, I think it was 10 points up. Anton Donnelly got a goal for screen from the penalty spot, but that's Maherfeld through into the front door section of the Derry one's done by back door now, as opposed to group stages. Slaughtneil comfortable enough winners over Kilrea. Finn McEldowney with an early goal. Shane McGuigan with 10 points, and by half time they were in a good enough spot. Paddy Quigg scored a goal for Kilrea early in the second half. I think there was a bit of a talking point, and I wasn't at the game, so I don't want to say too much about it because I wasn't there. But James Keith scored a goal from either a free or a tap and go situation, and it was ruled out. And then Slaughtneil were in command at half time. Paddy Quigg got a goal, and then a combination of Rua Minin, Brenton Rogers, Christian McKay kicked 2-pointers, and Slaughtneil then were on their way to a comfortable enough victory. Glen were winners over Banagher. Banagher actually parted company with their manager during the week between losing a relegation playoff and the weekend. Glen, Johnny McGuckin scored a goal in the first half. Alan Gunn is raving about the pass from Conor Glass that opened up the door for the goal, but it came at a cost for Glen. Michael Warnock left, and he was in crutches after the game. Seems to be an ankle injury. Kieran McFall didn't come out for the second half, and they were without Emmett Bradley and Danny McDermott. Jody McDermott came off, so there's a bit of a concern there now in terms of injuries for Rory Kavanagh. And the other game, Sean, was played on Wednesday. It was an early game. Lavey 4-19 to 1-17 winners over Drumcerne. Tiernan McHugh kicked 1-4 from Drumcerne, who got a decent start. 2 Rory McGill goals, one coming from an excellent kick out over the top from Louis Regan. And Lavey, our team that I was impressed enough last year in the championship, I would have to say. And I'm looking forward to seeing them play, to see, have they pushed on that wee bit more, and with them given everybody that real hope of things being open. You just wonder, is Lavey another team that's going to creep into that mix? So that's as quick a synopsis as I can give you. But I think the main takeaway point is, with Derry appointing their management team before the championship, they can now watch the club championship within the new rules and see if they've got something that can take them into the county season next season, with the potential of a McKenna Cup coming knocking very quickly. And Sean, you took a look at Cavan. I think Crusherlock, Gowna, and Kingscourt are maybe they've 2 wins from 2. So what did you find out there?
Yeah, they're the front runners at the minute. Crosserlock, Gowna, and Kingscourt 2 from 2. Obviously, the league status of the league format of the championship that Damien Donoghue described us last week. They're the 3 top teams at the minute. Then you have Ramor and Mullahoran. They're unbeaten after their 2 games that they drew in the opening round, and they picked up wins over the weekend. Ramor were really impressive winners over Arva. Obviously, Arva junior and intermediate champions in the last couple of years. They're up battling in the senior championship now. A big 6-12 to 1-11 win for Ramor United. Arva war under strength, admittedly. Sean McAvoy was the main man for Ramor. He had 2-4, and the game was essentially over at half time. It was 3-7 to 1-2, and obviously Ramor United just pushed on after that. Then Gowna had a win over Cavan Gales, and Cavan Gales, that's 2 in a row they've lost now, so they'll be a bit concerned. They've lost to Kingscourt and now Gowna, so not a great start for them. Conor Casey hit the only goal of the game. That put Gowna ahead by 1 point at half time, 110 to 0-12, and they scored 10 points again in the second half, while Cavan Gales only scored 5. So the second half performance was the big thing for Vinnie Corey's side. I suppose their burst at the start of the second half was important. They were a point up at half time, and then at the first 4 scores of the second half, that gave them a bit of breathing space, and Gowna were fit to push on from there. Crosserlock have been really impressive so far. They're the defending champions. They're Damien Donoghue's bat as well, as we found out last week. But they put up 3-17 to 0-9 win over Ballina, and all their goals came in the second half. Owen Rahal scored a goal, Stephen Smith scored 1, and Peter Smith as well. But I suppose to take away from their first 2 games, Crosserlock have put up 8-34 in 2 games. Phenomenal scoring. They got 3 goals this week, 5 last week. And while there will certainly be tougher tests ahead for them, it's been a brilliant start for them as they got their title defence up and running. On just a quick run through the rest of the results then. Kings Court beat Ballyhaise 3-13 to 110. As I mentioned, Kings Court beat Cavan Gales last week, so they're 2 from 2 at this stage. Killygarry got a win over Lara 116 to 0-11, and Castlerohan got beat by Mullahorn. There was 1 goal, and the difference in this one, Mullahorn coming away with a 3-15 to 2-15 win. So that's our roundup of Cavan. We'll look to Antrim now, Mal. I know you were surveying everything in the Saffron County.
Yeah, it seems to be, it wasn't any major shocks that you can see. Probably the biggest result was Achigaln bouncing back to get a victory. The way Antrim works, you have 4 groups of 4 and 2 advance, and the bottom team goes into relegation. Dunloy 4-15 to 5-8 winners over Tiernan, so that's 2 from 2 from Dunloy. And also in that group, Cargan 4-15 to 111 winners. So Dunloy and Cargan will play off to see who finishes top, and then Tiernan and St John's, who Cargan beat, they're now facing a relegation battle, which is a big spot for St John's to find themselves in. Ryan McNulty scored a goal for them. Paddy McBride kicked 4 points. Connor Johnson scored 2-1 for Cargan. Kevin Boyle with a goal. Tomas McCann 6 points. But I think a talking point was Connor Johnson got sent off late on with a straight red card, and Ronan Devlin has said that Cargan's going to appeal that. So that's the way that group finishes. So Group 2, Portnadown 2-14 to 12 points, winners over Rossa, who were pretty impressive themselves in the first game. Jared Walsh with 4 points for Rossa. Michael Hagan and Sean Byrne with the Portnadown goals, with Dermot McAleese, obviously one of their key players. He had 3 points as well. Clonravel lost their first game, but they were winners over Aldergrove 3-14 to 211, which gives them a wee bit of breathing space and leaves Aldergrove now possibly in a relegation playoff. There's obviously a round of games still to play, so that's the way Group 2 is. Cregan, the Group 3 was the group of death. Cregan were winners over Lavjara at 2-16 to 211. Joe McAteer's goal, I think, sort of sealed it when he came off the bench. It was a tight enough first half. A Shane McCann goal put Cregan 110 to 2-4 up. Mark Finnegan scored 1-5 for Lavjarag. And then St. Gall's were 4-16 to 119 winners over All Saints. Now, a lot of people tipped this as a group of death, but now All Saints and Lavjarag, they're going to go into a relegation playoff, and like Lavjarag, recent champions. So that's a big game coming down the tracks for them. Niall Burns scored 1-6 for St. Gall's, who had a really big first half because Connor Stewart had a goal. I think it put All Saints 8 points up. They were 4 up at half time. So that second half was significant, like 4-16. And I think they got 4 in the first game against Lavjarag. So they're ticking along nicely, and they didn't qualify last year. They ended up in that relegation battle. So, and then the final group, St. Bridget's 3-27, Ahahull 3-11. And Ahahull had a great victory over Achigaln in the first round. So that's St. Bridget's. I make it there on 4 points as well. St. Paul's they're in 0 points, so they're going to be in the relegation mix because they lost to Achigaln. Adam Loughran with the goal. Johnny Hannon also fairly commanding for them. So that'll give Pete McGrath a wee bit of breathing space now, because they've been to a county final recently, and then they haven't pushed on. And that defeat, I think it was at home to Hull. I think it was. So that defeat left them.
It was at home.
That left them with a few questions. So yourself, whenever you have a defeat, the next thing you need is some sort of respite, and they've got that. So that's the way Antrim has panned out so far, and it's 1 versus 2 from another group. I think it's Group 1 versus Group 4, but we could talk more about that after round 3. And then obviously you have people looking over their shoulders for relegation. So Sean, obviously Mr. All Things Armagh, you were saying to me this morning on WhatsApp, there's a few big results that in a knockout championship would be really significant, but you do it differently. You're in the group scenario. So what way have things gone there? Was there any game stood above the rest for you?
Yeah, I suppose in Armagh, the group system, that's the same as the inter-county one has been the last 3 years, 4 groups of 4. The top goes through to the quarterfinals, 2 and 3 goes into the playoffs, and 4 is out of the championship. So this was the first round, and a couple of, I don't want to call them upsets, because I think the Armagh Championship is fairly open, and as we get into it, I think there's Clonerne, and then there's the rest. Seems to be the way the Armagh Championship's going to be. Clonerne were probably the main talking point, or one of the main talking points. They're obviously the defending champions, a team that, if they get through Armagh, will have their eyes set on an Ulster Championship, I would imagine, having come so close again Argyll Kieran last year in the semi-final. But they put a huge score up against Caircruppen. Now, Caircruppen are only up from intermediate. They won the intermediate championship. They secured their senior status during the league. So that was the big thing for Caircruppen this year. And they welcomed the best team in Armagh to their home ground in Camlaw on Sunday. And Clonerne were just too good for them, plain and simple. Conor Turbot got 1-9. We all know the shooting efficiency of Conor Turbot, the majority from frees, but still a good tally for him to put up. And Barry McCambridge, a Ireland winner, their captain Conor McConville and Emmett McGee, who won a Sigerson Cup with Jordanstown last year, they didn't start the game. They all only come off the bench. So a phenomenal win for Clonerne, 125 to 5 points, given that they didn't even have their full hand for the whole game. That was probably the one that really caught the eye, Mal, because Clonerne are the defending champions. They're the favourites to go back to back, which they've never done in their history before. So it's a big thing for them. And they're in Group 4, which they're obviously top of Group 4 at the minute. The Harps and Drummondhee are also in that group, and the Harps got up and running with a win. They beat Drummondhee away from home 3-12 to 0-15. So the final round of games is going to pin Clonerne and the Harps together, and it looks like that's going to be a straight shootout to see who's going to top the group. Group 1 was probably deemed the group of death. We had Cleeve, who were Division 1A League winners, Cullaville, Division 1B League winners, you had Gaelic, who have reached the last 2 county finals, and you had Mahary, a really experienced championship team, have won 2 championships in the last 5 or 6 years. So 2 slight upsets here, maybe. Two home teams come out on top. Cullaville beat Cleeve 4-16 to 3-11, and this was a huge win for Cullaville because Colin Waters, former Armagh player, had retired this year. They had a few boys in Australia, a few boys missing for various reasons, but they've brought through their young team. They won the under-21 championship last year, and they've brought through that youth. And it's really been a success story this year for Cullaville. They won the Division 1B League, and they've now beaten the Division 1A League champions in Cleeve, albeit by a point. Cleeve put on a real press in the last couple of minutes. I think they outscored Cullaville 1-5 to 1 point or something like that in the last couple of minutes, but Cullaville full value for their win. Then we had Mahary and Clonagale. This was probably pinned as the game of the weekend, or one of them certainly. And Mahary is the cliched tough place to go in Armagh. It's definitely one of them. They come away with 2 19 to 1-16 winners. Stephen Falker shooting the lights out, and I know he's involved with Kerry Duff as well, and they get their championship campaign up and running this week. But I think he scored 9, and he was just a 2-point threat all night long. Brendan Haverin as well, former county panelist, he got a goal, created a goal, and he's been one of their main men at centre half back. And this was all without Aidan Falker too for Mahary, which makes it more impressive. But Clonagale were out without a few key men as well. Shane McFarland wasn't there. Callum O'Neill, up and coming rising star in Armagh, he looks like he's going to be out for a while, so he wasn't there. So a couple of big misses for Clonagale, and obviously it's a big win for Mahary. So that leaves that group really interesting. Group 2, again another contender for a game of the week. Before a ball was kicked, was Cullyhanna taking on Madden. These are 2 teams that would really fancy their chances of going deep into this championship. And Cullyhanna led for the majority of the game. Sean O'Gerwin got a goal at the start of the second half, but Madden did start to reel them back in and eventually got ahead. I think it was the 52nd minute before Madden took the lead, but they got ahead by a point. And Cullyhanna just saw things out. Ross McQuillan, who was probably one of the best players on the field on the night, he was also an injury doubt before the game, but he played really well. He got a levelling score, and Kieran McCooey got the winner to see Cullyhanna open their account with a win. And Mullabone were superb against Pearse Oaks. They won 4-19 to 3-13. The big story from this game was Shayla. He scored a hat trick from full forward, 3 goals and 5 points for his tally. So while this group initially it looked like Cullyhanna Madden was going to be the big game for the top spot, Mullabone have just really put their hands up, and they play. I think they play Cullyhanna this weekend, so that's going to be a massive game to see who tops that group. Group 3 then, Crossmaglen got up and running. They beat Greenmore 113 to 11. Far from convincing, but a wee bit of forward power from the likes of Cian McConville and Aaron O'Neill were essential to get Cross over the line. Cross are down a couple of key men as well. Oisín O'Neill looks to be set for a spell on the sidelines with a recurring injury. Callum Comiskey as well. He's out. He was the captain, so he's going to be out for a while. And I think Bernard Cassidy also, Pierce Blessing it was, got injured against Greenmore, so he's going to be out for a while too. So Crossmaglen nursing a few injuries. And then one of the results of the weekend was St Peters. They were relegated to intermediate during the league, but they beat Silverbridge 2-9 to 0-9 at the weekend. So it was a huge win for them. And I suppose it leaves everything really up for grabs next weekend, Mal, across the groups in Armagh. And I know Donegal has been well underway at this stage. I think this is the 3rd week of it, Mal, and you had an eye on Donegal's championship.
Yeah, the way it works in Donegal, you play 4 games, and the top 4 go into the quarterfinals. The next 8 play in preliminary quarterfinals, and then the bottom 4 are into the relegation. And St Knowles, Ballyshannon, and Glenfin have no points, so they're looking over their shoulder at the wrong end. Dunloe and Gweedore have 2 wins, and then McCool's and Glenswilly, who drew at the weekend, they're unbeaten. So that's the overall picture. I'll just take a wee quick look through the games here. St Michael's 127, Glenfin 112. Aaron McGlynn got a goal for Glenfin, but Michael Langan back in action. I think he gets something like 10 or 11 points. You know, he's a real all-star contender. Daniel McLaughlin with 7 points, and Carlos O'Reilly, a fairly influential man as well. So they had a wide range of scorers. Termon were winners over Four Masters. The 2 teams have sort of come up from the Division 2 and who have been recent champions up at St Paul's and Belfast. Conor McCall with a goal, Oisín Reid with a goal as well. But Ricky Gallagher, Dara McDaid, Ryan McFadden, they had a bounce back tournament because it was on their home ground in Burn Road, but they had lost their opening game, so that they won the league in Donegal. So that's an important victory for them. McCool's and Glenswilly was a draw. As I say, they both won their first games. Oisín Gallen was back in action for Gary Wilson's team. No sign of Michael Murphy. And McCool's were, I'm not sure how far up they were, to be honest with you, but they had a significant lead. I was chatting to a man over the weekend up in Letterkenny, and then Gary McFadden came back, kicked a 2-pointer. Goalkeeper Keelan Kelly, I think he made an important save, and he came up to kick a score at an important stage. Kevin Marley with a handful of points. So 2 teams we'll keep an eye on, and they're unbeaten. The shock was probably Kilcar and Downings. I met a man from Kilcar at the Saw Doctors, and he says he's beat St Eunan's, or he's now the favourites. And his exact words were, "No point in beating St Eunan's if we don't beat Downings tomorrow." And it was poetic words because they lost to them. Patrick McBearty kicked 8 points. Still no Ryan McHugh. Mark McHugh came on for Owen McHugh. Ryan McShane with a goal and 2. But Johnny McGrady, a player I saw in action on Sigerson level, he scored 1-8. Paddy McElwee, I saw him as well at college level. So they did the business from Maxie Kern's side. So they were at the bottom of the table, and Kilcar won the league game whenever they were scraping for points. So a big turnaround there. Naomh Connell, have been the super power in Donegal football for a while. They just about beat Ardra, 18 points to 114. CJ Malloy with 1-7. Owen McGettigan, I think he scored 8 or 9 points for Naomh Conaill, and they brought on Charles McGuinness and Leo McClune and Brick Malloy. And I think, I'm not exactly sure if Brick Malloy's 2-pointer won the game or put them level, but that was significant to get that point. And I was listening to the Highland interview with Martin Regan, like they weren't overly happy with how they played, but after losing their first game, it was just important to get that result. St Eunan's lost their opening game. They won away in Ballyshannon, and like Barry Meehan said in his interview, that the only thing they were interested in was a victory, and they got that. Sean Patton was back between the sticks. There was no Shane O'Donnell. Kieran Moore was back. Niall O'Donnell, Connor Jr. and Connor Sr. You need to get mixed up in the names around St Eunan's, but Owen McGeehan with 2-3 was sort of the main man. And from chatting to a couple of St Eunan's men on Saturday night up in there, they were saying it was just a case of we just needed to win the game, so they were happy to get up and running. And so that's the way that one fell. Dunloe, back-to-back victories. They were winners over Killybegs. Goals from Sean McGee, Luke Clerkin, Oisín Bonner, Owen Ban and Hugh McFadden both played for Killybegs. And the final game here, Gweedore, 19 points, St Knowles, 11. Gavin Mulroney scored 3 2-pointers. But I think Gweedore put Micheál Roarty, on as a marker on Peadar Mogan, because they saw Peadar Mogan's influence not only for Donegal but in the first game. So he seemed to nullify him from what I can hear. Ethan Harkin and Finnan Coyle scored heavily for Gweedore, and they're back-to-back winners now. So and as I say, I was chatting to Ronan McNeilis on Saturday, and he did say that and his time involved, they've never really topped the group, they've never got into the quarterfinals, sort of the front doorway. So the way the draw works is they've now 2 more games to try and see can they get a direct route into the quarterfinals, because it gives you a free weekend. And I suppose if you've got county players with Donegal's extended run, that extra week's break will probably be golden, and maybe golden for the likes of Gary McDade, where you can give Michael Murphy extra time, because you're going to need your big dogs whenever it heats up. So maybe it's a balancing act, but that's the lie of the land on Donegal, Sean. And I suppose just to finish off here, Tyrone Down haven't started and Fermanagh haven't started their league, but I think there's a big talking point in the Fermanagh League final yesterday. Derry Gonley were 2-point winners over Aaron Gales, but it seems to be that the last 2 points that Derry Gonley got, they were actually 2-pointers, but if you see the footage, they were quite clearly inside. So instead, Aaron Gales were 2 points up. All of a sudden, they find themselves 2 points down whenever it's really level. And I think they made a possession of the ball, and it's probably a bit like the county hurling scenario where they were going for a goal whenever they actually they wouldn't have needed it. So a bit of a talking point there. So I don't know if there'll be anything come of it, but sure, what would the GA be, Sean, without a couple of talking points every weekend? What will we have to talk about?
Yeah, there's always something, Mal, no doubt about it. Just before we wrap up, we're going to hear from James McNichol. Mal mentioned earlier, they didn't give him manager, and they upset the odds against Newbridge. So we're going to hear from him now, and that'll bring our show to an end. We'll be back on Thursday, and we'll have another podcast for everyone. And of course, every Monday and Thursday, we're here on the Gaelic Lives podcast. Mal, great to hear from you. Great to hear from Fergal Monaghan as well earlier on. So thanks very much.
Thanks, Sean. James McNichol, the given manager, you've just got into the next round of the championship. You've beaten the county champions. What's the thoughts? What's the feeling?
Look, we're delighted. It was a tough draw. We always knew it was going to be a tough draw, but luckily we had a game plan. We went after it and we expressed ourselves a bit. And look, as I said beforehand, look, Newbridge are super team, and all this, told the boys Tuesday night, all this done was really just seed us onto a pot, and we're just through Glen now, so that's another big day out for us. But there was nothing at risk here. It was a free hit for us, so we were able to play with the shackles off a wee bit, and look, we'll get a few things right, tactically, and a wee bit of luck here or there, and you need that to beat teams like that. But as I said, unfortunately, Newbridge will get a massive kick out of them. They're an unbelievable team. So unfortunately for everybody else, they'll probably come back stronger than ever.
How much do you take out of your group game with Glen last year and out here against Maherfelt, if anything at all? Because you're coming with a young side and you stared victory in the eyes twice. Is it something that you used or not?
We can't be young every year. That's the same team as 3 years. 3 years ago, everybody says we're young, and yes, there is. Darren McGonagall's in this year from the minors last year. We have an unbelievable batch of minors coming through. The longer this championship goes on, I think the minor championship get trapped up. So whatever stage they get to, they'll join the panel as well and add to us. But it's a wee bit of belief, a wee bit of that, but I think we spend a lot of time in the video room and we got things right, and I think whenever they see things happening on the pitch that they've seen during the week, then they're young enough to have no fear to go at things as well. And we've also the Kevin Johnsons and Darren McGilligans and Paul Murphy's with a bit of maturity about there as well to, whenever we need to sit, we sit, and a wee bit of balance but look, we've a tough day out the next day, so as you said, we're only through the first round as such, so but we'll enjoy that. There's a top 4 in Derry, and I'd rather been playing the top 4, given there's another chance in this. If it had been straight knockout, we want a wee bit handier, but we had to go today, and there's tough enough conditions, but in terms of the heat, but we had a good bench as well. We had 3 or 4 men that come on that give us a bit of energy around the middle third as well, and that's important. But look, as I said, we're playing the next day, and these games can very easily get away from you as well.
What's the most satisfying aspect of your performance? Obviously the victory was really important, but dig deeper from a manager, what did you see that really pleased you?
We worked in 3 or 4 small things, and a couple of their key men, and it's a very small, and I've been preaching them for about 6 or 8 weeks, to be honest, and I didn't know who we were going to draw, but I just knew if we got them things at the right day, and we found them today, those 2 or 3 things, and look, but the modern game was momentum as well, and it can very easily go away from you. But I just thought whenever they had the proper patch, we were able to manage it a wee bit better, and then look, with the breeze the second half, so it was a wee bit easier in the legs. Like the conditions were super tough for both teams there, so again, the breeze in the second half made that a wee bit easier for us as well.
You touched on the Glen side of things, like they're obviously recent All-Ireland champions, and you don't have much time because it's probably pushing the reset button and going again. But like,
look, we've 11 12 hurlers there. We'll go to Cavan Lynch's this week, play Sackneil, so like I don't recovering. A couple of them boys are niggles and knocks there, but look, we had 3 or 4 men there that if this was straight knockout, another couple of men probably would have been playing there. They weren't playing today, we didn't take the risk on them. So the one thing about I'll say about ourselves is we're very adaptable, and I had a fair idea how Newbridge would attack and defend, and that's we got joy to that, how we not only counteract that, then maximise that, I suppose, in terms of our own play. But look, not much of our own play really changed all season. We go after certain principles, and there's days that they suit, and it could have been poor conditions here. It's not a day for that for good football, but we are very adaptable in terms of that. But look, we play Glen in the league, and look, we had a good league this year, but Glen destroyed us in the league. It's the only team really gave us a real bad beating in the league. So look, we're fully aware, and that was Glen. We know County men. So, but look, to say, look, the hurlers now go away for a week, and it's not ideal. So I wasn't actually out at the Glen match earlier. So, but look, they're a top team. County men everywhere, we pace everywhere. So. But look, that's what you want to be. That's what we play football for. And so the boys there, that's we've plenty of dark days. We've a tough enough decade or so there. But look, we've been building from our youth now for 10 years or 7 or 8 years, and you just get the fruits of it. And hopefully there's a few more coming now as well. So.